The sun was setting as Tiana pulled her old blue Honda into the Highway 78 rest stop. She'd been driving for almost 6 hours straight and her eyes felt heavy. The long drive from her college campus back to her hometown always drained her, but this time felt worse. Maybe it was the 3 final exams she'd crammed for last week, or maybe it was the fact that she'd barely slept before hitting the road at dawn. Just 2 more hours, she whispered to herself, stretching her arms above her head as she parked. The rest area was quiet, just a few cars scattered across the large lot. A semi-truck was parked at the far end, and a couple of family minivans sat near the building entrance. Tiana grabbed her phone and sent a quick text to her mom. At the rest stop near Springfield. Be home around 8. She stepped out of her car, the cool evening air feeling good against her skin. The building ahead housed restrooms, vending machines, and a small information desk that was probably closed by now. Tiana locked her car and walked toward the entrance, her sneakers crunching on the gravel at the edge of the parking lot. Inside, she splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles hung under her eyes, and her normally neat braids were coming loose at the edges. "You look how you feel," she said to herself with a tired smile. She fixed her hair as best she could and decided to grab a snack and some coffee before getting back on the road. As she stood at the vending machine, fishing for quarters in her pocket, she felt a prickle on the back of her neck, that strange sensation of being watched. Tiana glanced around casually. The rest stop was mostly empty, but a man stood near the map display on the opposite wall. He was white, probably in his 40s, with a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He wasn't looking at her directly, but Tiana could tell he'd been staring just moments before. She turned back to the vending machine, trying to shake off the unease. Probably nothing. People looked at other people all the time. She was being paranoid after watching too many crime shows with her roommate. Coffee in hand, Tiana headed back toward the exit. As she pushed through the door, she noticed the man had moved too, following several paces behind. Still, the parking lot was well lit, and there were other travelers around. She took a deep breath and walked confidently toward her car. That's when she noticed a silver rental car now parked right next to hers, though the lot was nearly empty. The space had definitely been vacant when she'd arrived. A chill ran through her that had nothing to do with the evening air. Tiana slowed her pace, considering her options. She could go back inside, but the rest stop appeared to be closing soon, with the attendant already locking one of the entrance doors. She could call someone, but who? Her parents were still 2 hours away, and the police would probably think she was overreacting. She decided to walk past her car, pretending to look for something else, when the man's voice called out behind her. "Excuse me, miss? Sorry to bother you." Tiana turned, keeping several feet between them. Up close, she could see the man was wearing an expensive-looking jacket that seemed too warm for the weather. His smile looked friendly enough, but it didn't reach his eyes, which were still shadowed by his cap. "I'm a bit lost," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "My GPS keeps taking me in circles. I'm trying to get to Riverside. Do you know the area?" Riverside was her hometown. Something cold settled in Tiana's stomach. "Sorry, I'm not from around here," she lied, clutching her car keys tighter, the longest key pushed between her fingers like she'd learned in a self-defense class. "That's too bad," he said, taking a step closer. "I could have sworn I saw your car earlier today heading this way. Thought maybe we were going to the same place." Had he been following her? Tiana's heart pounded harder, but she kept her face neutral. "Nope, just passing through." The man tilted his head slightly. "Well, maybe you could look at my map anyway. It'll just take a second. It's in my car here." He gestured to the silver rental. "I really can't help." "Sorry," Tiana said firmly, beginning to turn away. "It's getting dark," the man continued, his friendly tone now sounding forced. "Young girl like you shouldn't be driving alone at night. Not safe these days. I could follow you to the next town if you want. Make sure you get there okay." Every alarm bell in Tiana's head was ringing now. She needed to get away, but her car was right next to his. If she tried to get in, he could easily block her door or grab her. She remembered a TikTok video she'd watched months ago about a hand signal for help, a way to silently alert others you were in danger. Thumb tucked into palm, fingers closed over it. Just as Tiana was contemplating her next move, she noticed a tall figure walking across the parking lot toward them. It was a black man, maybe in his early 40s, built solid like someone who spent time at the gym. He wore a faded army jacket and carried a small convenience store bag. The stranger followed her gaze and straightened up, suddenly less interested in crowding her space. "Everything okay here?" the newcomer asked, his deep voice calm but commanding. Before the first man could answer, Tiana made the signal with her right hand, keeping it low by her side where only the newcomer could see. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Recognition. He'd seen the signal and understood it. "Been looking all over for you," he said to Tiana, smoothly stepping between her and the stranger. "Your mom called, wondering what was taking so long." "I told her I'd find you here." Tiana caught on immediately. "Sorry, I stopped for coffee. Didn't think I'd run into you here." The stranger in the cap shifted uncomfortably. "Friend of yours?" he asked, his voice tight. "Family friend," the newcomer said simply, extending his hand to Tiana. "Ray Wilson." "Tiana," she replied, taking his hand, relief flooding through her. Ray turned to the stranger. "Can we help you with something?" "Just asking for directions," the man muttered, his friendly demeanor completely gone now. "Where are you headed?" Ray asked, his stance relaxed but alert. "Riverside," the man said. Ray nodded. "Take the next exit. Go east on Highway 16 for about 20 miles. Can't miss it." His tone made it clear the conversation was over. The stranger hesitated, looking between them. For a moment, Tiana feared he might argue or worse, but then he shrugged. "Thanks," he said flatly, turning toward his car. Ray stayed perfectly still, watching as the man got into his rental car. He didn't move until the silver sedan had pulled out of the parking spot and driven away. "He's gone," Ray said finally, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "You okay?" Tiana let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Yeah, thank you. I don't know what would have happened if—" "Let's get inside where there are more people," Ray interrupted gently. "I don't trust that he's really gone." As they walked back toward the rest stop building, Tiana noticed Ray scanning the parking lot and road repeatedly. Up close, she could see a Marine Corps tattoo on his wrist. "How did you know?" she asked. "About the signal, I mean." Ray gave her a small smile. "Used to be a Marine. Now I volunteer with a group that trains people to recognize signs of trafficking and domestic violence. That hand signal is new, but it's been saving lives." He paused. "Want to tell me what happened?" Inside the brightly lit building, Tiana felt safer, though her hands were still shaking. She told Ray how the man had parked next to her, how he seemed to know where she was going, and how something about him had set off all her internal alarms. "Trust those instincts," Ray said seriously. "They're usually right. That man was fishing for something, and it wasn't directions." "You think he was following me?" Tiana asked, the reality of what might have happened sinking in. "Maybe. Or maybe he spotted you and saw an opportunity." Ray ran a hand over his close-cropped hair. "Either way, I don't think you should get back on the road right away. He might be waiting somewhere ahead." "But I need to get home," Tiana said, checking her phone. "My parents are expecting me." "Call them," Ray suggested. "Tell them you'll be late." "We should report this to the highway patrol, and I think it would be better if you didn't travel alone right now." As Tiana made the call to her increasingly worried parents, she watched Ray speaking with the rest stop attendant, who was now on the phone as well, presumably with the authorities. She still felt shaken, but the immediate fear was fading, replaced by a profound gratitude for this stranger who had recognized her silent call for help and responded without hesitation. What had started as a routine drive home had turned into something frightening and surreal, and Tiana couldn't shake the thought that if Ray hadn't been there, if he hadn't known what her hand signal meant, this evening might have ended very differently. Outside the window, the last light of day had disappeared, leaving only darkness beyond the bright lights of the rest stop. Somewhere out there, a silver rental car might still be waiting, but for now at least, Tiana was safe. The fluorescent lights of the rest stop hummed overhead as Tiana sat at a small table, hands wrapped around a fresh cup of coffee. She hadn't wanted more caffeine, but Ray had suggested it might help with the shock. Across from her, Ray was speaking quietly on his phone. His broad shoulders turned slightly away as he explained the situation to someone on the other end. "Yes, sir. Highway 78 rest area, just past mile marker 142. He paused, listening. Silver Chevy Malibu, rental plates. "I got a partial started with TDR. Another pause. "About 20 minutes ago now." Tiana stared down at her coffee, still trying to process what had happened. The rest stop attendant, an older woman named Darlene, had been kind enough to stay past her shift. She now stood behind the information counter, occasionally glancing their way with concern. Ray ended his call and returned to the table. Highway Patrol is sending someone. Should be here in about 15 minutes. Thank you, Tiana said, looking up at him. For everything. I don't know what would have happened if... Don't think about that part. Ray interrupted gently, sitting down across from her. You did everything right. You stayed aware, you didn't go with him, and you signaled for help. Tiana nodded, though she couldn't stop the slight tremor in her hands. How did you notice? The signal, I mean. It was so small. Ray's expression softened. 4 tours in Afghanistan teaches you to notice details. But it was also the training. Last year I started volunteering with a group that works to spot human trafficking. They taught us all the signals, including that hand sign. He smiled slightly. Never thought I'd actually see someone use it. I saw it on TikTok, Tiana admitted. My roommate made me watch these safety videos after... She hesitated. After what? Ray asked, his voice calm but concerned. Tiana took a deep breath. Last semester, a girl from my university disappeared. They found her 3 days later. She was okay, physically at least, but she'd been taken by some men who tried to... She couldn't finish the sentence. Ray nodded, understanding. And that's why you were cautious today. I guess I never thought it could happen to me, though. Not really. Tiana looked toward the darkened windows.
Do you think he's still out there?
Hard to say, Ray answered honestly. But even if he is, Highway Patrol will be looking for him now. The front door chimed as it opened, making Tiana jump. But it was just a tired-looking truck driver coming in for coffee. Ray nodded at the man, who nodded back in that universal greeting of strangers on the road. You mentioned your parents earlier, Ray said, turning back to her. Are they expecting you tonight? Yeah, Tiana pulled out her phone. I should call them again. After what I told them earlier, they're probably freaking out. As she dialed, Ray stood up. I'm going to check something. Be right back. Tiana watched him walk over to Darlene at the counter, their voices too low to hear. Her mother answered on the second ring. Tiana, are you okay? Dad's about to get in the car and drive out there. I'm okay, Mom, Tiana said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Highway Patrol is coming. A man here helped me. What man? Who is he? Her mother's voice rose with fresh concern. His name is Ray. He's a former Marine. He saw what was happening and stepped in. Tiana watched as Ray and Darlene looked at something on the counter computer. Mom, I think that guy might have been following me. There was a brief silence on the other end. Your father is definitely coming to get you. Don't move from that rest stop. Stay where there are people. I will, Mom, I promise. After she hung up, Tiana noticed Ray walking back toward her, his expression troubled. Everything okay? She asked as he sat down. Ray hesitated before answering. Darlene let me look at the security footage. That silver car, it's been here before. 3 times in the past month, always in the evening. A chill ran through Tiana. You think he hangs around here looking for targets? Ray nodded grimly. It's a perfect spot. Isolated enough, but with steady traffic. People stopping alone, often tired from driving, less alert. Like me, Tiana said quietly. Darlene's burning a copy of the footage for the Highway Patrol. Ray glanced toward the door. Speaking of which, through the glass, Tiana could see the flashing lights of a patrol car pulling into the parking lot. Relief washed over her, even as another part of her brain whispered that it was too late now. The man in the silver car was long gone. The trooper who walked in was a tall woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her name tag read Officer Chen. She greeted Darlene first, then walked over to their table. You the folks who reported a suspicious individual? She asked, looking between them. For the next 20 minutes. Tiana recounted her experience, the man parking next to her despite the empty lot. His strange comments, how he seemed to know where she was headed. Ray added his observations, including what he'd seen on the security footage. Officer Chen took detailed notes, her expression remaining professional but with flashes of concern showing through. And you're certain he mentioned Riverside specifically? She asked Tiana. Yes. He said he was trying to get there, but then he also said he thought he'd seen my car earlier, headed the same way. Tiana wrapped her arms around herself. It was like he was letting me know he'd been following me. Officer Chen nodded, writing something down. And you've never seen this individual before? Never. The officer turned to Ray. Mr. Wilson, you said you got a partial plate? TDR was the first 3. Couldn't see the rest from where I was standing. Officer Chen finished writing and looked up. We've had reports of a similar vehicle at 2 other rest stops in the county. Same pattern, man approaching young women traveling alone. She hesitated. There was an attempted abduction last month about 40 miles from here. The description matches. Tiana felt her stomach drop. So I was right. He was going to... We don't know that for certain, Officer Chen said quickly. But your instincts were good. And your quick thinking with the hand signal may have prevented something serious. She looked at Ray. Good catch on that, sir. Ray shook his head. Just happened to be in the right place. The front door chimed again, and this time 2 more state troopers walked in. Officer Chen excused herself to speak with them, leaving Tiana and Ray at the table. I can't believe this is happening, Tiana said softly. 2 hours ago, I was just driving home for spring break. Ray looked at her thoughtfully. Sometimes life changes in an instant. Good or bad? This feels like both, Tiana replied. Bad that it happened, but good that... She didn't finish the sentence, but her meaning was clear. Good that she was still here, still safe. Officer Chen returned with one of the other troopers. We're going to need formal statements from both of you, she said. And Ms. Jackson, we've been in touch with your parents. Your father should be here in about an hour. Tiana nodded, relieved. In the meantime, Officer Chen continued, we're putting out an alert for the vehicle. There will be extra patrols on Highway 78 tonight, especially around Riverside. She turned to Ray. Mr. Wilson, I understand you were planning to continue your drive. That was the plan, Ray said. I'm heading west, though, opposite direction from Riverside. Officer Chen nodded. We'll try not to keep you too long. As the officers set up to take their statements, Darlene brought over fresh coffee and some sandwiches from the vending area. On the house, she said with a warm smile. You two have had enough excitement for one evening. Tiana thanked her, realizing she was actually hungry despite everything. As she unwrapped the sandwich, she noticed Ray checking his watch. You have somewhere to be? She asked. My sister's expecting me, he admitted. But it's fine. This is more important. I'm sorry for messing up your plans. Ray shook his head firmly. Don't apologize. Not for this. Not ever. They ate in silence for a moment, the reality of the evening settling around them. Outside, more patrol cars had arrived, their lights creating a kaleidoscope of blue and red across the parking lot. You know, Ray said finally, I almost didn't stop here tonight. Was going to push through to the next rest area. Something told me to pull in, though. Tiana looked at him, understanding the weight of that coincidence. I believe things happen for a reason, she said quietly. Today I think that reason was keeping me safe. Ray nodded, his eyes reflecting something deep and knowing. The look of someone who had seen the worst of humanity but still chose to believe in the best. The hand signal worked, he said after a moment. That's what matters. It worked because you knew it, and because someone else recognized it. He gestured toward the officers taking statements. That's worth telling people about. As Tiana watched the activity around them, the fear that had gripped her earlier began to transform into something else, a determination that what had almost happened to her wouldn't happen to someone else. Maybe there was something in this experience worth sharing, some warning or lesson that could help another person. The highway patrol would search for the man in the silver car. Her father would arrive soon to take her home. And Ray, this stranger who had become something more in the span of an hour, would continue on his journey. But something had shifted in Tiana's world, a new awareness of both danger and hope, of the darkness that could lurk in ordinary places, and the light that could appear just when needed most. The rest stop had transformed from a quiet waypoint to a hub of activity. 2 more patrol cars had arrived, their lights painting the parking lot in alternating flashes of red and blue. Tiana sat on a bench outside, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, though the night wasn't particularly cold. It was more for comfort than warmth. Ray stood a few feet away, speaking with a detective who had arrived 20 minutes earlier. The man wore plain clothes, khaki pants and a button-up shirt with a badge clipped to his belt. But his serious demeanor made his profession obvious. Tiana watched as Ray gestured toward the highway, then pointed to different areas of the parking lot, likely explaining how events had unfolded. Officer Chen approached Tiana, carrying 2 cups of steaming liquid. Hot chocolate, she said, offering one to Tiana. Thought you might need something besides coffee. Thank you, Tiana said, accepting the cup gratefully. The warmth spreading through her hands felt grounding, a small comfort amid the chaos. Officer Chen sat beside her. Your father called again. He's about 30 minutes out. Tiana nodded, relief washing over her. Soon she'd be heading home with her dad, this nightmare evening finally behind her. We found something I think you should know about. Officer Chen continued, her voice gentle but serious. The rest stop cameras caught more than we initially realized. That silver car? It followed you from the gas station 20 miles back. We can see it pulling out after you at every exit you took. A chill ran down Tiana's spine that had nothing to do with the night air. So he really was following me. It wasn't random. Doesn't look that way, Officer Chen confirmed. We've alerted all patrols in a 100-mile radius. If he's still on the road, we'll find him. Tiana stared down at her hot chocolate, watching the steam rise into the cool night air. Why me? What did I do to make him choose me? Officer Chen shook her head firmly. Don't go there. This wasn't about anything you did or didn't do. Predators like this one look for opportunities, not specific people. You could have been anyone. That doesn't make me feel better, Tiana said quietly. I know. Officer Chen's voice softened. But I need you to understand this wasn't your fault. Not in any way. Across the parking lot, Ray had finished his conversation with the detective and was walking back toward them. There was a new tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. Everything okay? Tiana asked as he approached. Ray exchanged a look with Officer Chen before answering. They found the car, abandoned at a truck stop about 30 miles east of here. And the man. Tiana's heart pounded harder. Gone, Ray said, but they found some things in the car. He hesitated, looking at Officer Chen again. What kinds of things? Tiana pressed Officer Chen's side. I wasn't going to tell you this yet, but there was rope in the trunk, duct tape, and a burner phone with messages suggesting he wasn't working alone. The world seemed to tilt slightly beneath Tiana. She gripped the bench to steady herself, the hot chocolate in her other hand forgotten. You're saying he was going to... We don't know for certain what his intentions were, Officer Chen said quickly. But yes, the evidence suggests this was planned, not opportunistic. Ray sat down on Tiana's other side. The detective thinks it might be connected to a trafficking ring they've been tracking. 3 young women have disappeared from highways in this region over the past 2 months. One was found last week in a motel 50 miles from here. The others are still missing. Tiana felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The girl from her university who had disappeared last semester. Was it connected? Had she almost become another statistic? Another face on a missing poster? I can't... She started, then stopped, unable to find the words. It's okay, Ray said quietly. You're safe now. That's what matters. Officer Chen stood up. I need to check in with the detective. I'll be back in a few minutes. Stay with her? She asked Ray. He nodded, and Officer Chen walked away, leaving them sitting side by side on the bench. For a long moment, neither spoke. The reality of what might have happened hung between them, too heavy for words. Finally, Ray broke the silence. When I was in Afghanistan, our unit had a saying, the mission is now. It meant whatever happened before doesn't matter. Whatever might happen later doesn't matter. What matters is what you do right now in this moment. Tiana looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Right now, you're here. You're safe. You did everything right, and because of that, you're sitting on this bench instead of... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. And maybe others will be safe too, Tiana said slowly. If they catch him, if they find the people he's working with, maybe those missing girls. Ray nodded. Exactly. Your quick thinking didn't just save you. It might help save others too. A new patrol car pulled into the parking lot, and Tiana watched as a tall, powerfully built man stepped out, the detective Ray had been speaking with earlier. He was on his phone, gesturing emphatically as he talked. After a moment, he ended the call and walked briskly toward Officer Chen. Something's happening, Ray observed. They watched as the detective spoke urgently to Officer Chen, whose expression shifted from professional calm to alert focus. She nodded several times, then pulled out her own phone. Should we go see what's going on? Tiana asked. Before Ray could answer, Officer Chen was already walking back toward them, her stride purposeful. We just got a hit on the bolo, she said, referring to the be on the lookout alert they had issued. A silver Nissan was spotted at a gas station about 60 miles from here. Different car, but the man matches our description and he was with another individual. State police are en route, but they're at least 15 minutes out. And, Ray prompted, sensing there was more, and there was a young woman with them. She appeared to be in distress. The gas station attendant who called it in said she tried to mouth something to him when the men weren't looking. Tiana felt her blood run cold. Someone else. He's already found someone else. Officer Chen nodded grimly. Looks that way. The detective is coordinating with state police now. Ray stood up, his expression hardening. Is there anything we can do? Not right now, Officer Chen said. We're handling it. But this information changes things. Ms. Jackson, we're going to need you to stay a bit longer. Once your father arrives, we'll need both of you to come to the station to make formal statements. Tiana nodded numbly, still processing the news. Another girl may be in the same danger she had narrowly escaped. The thought made her feel sick. Ray sat back down beside her. You okay? No, Tiana admitted. I keep thinking about her, whoever she is. How scared she must be. The police will find her, Ray said, though his voice held a note of uncertainty. They both knew that in situations like this, time was critical. Every minute that passed, Tiana's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to find a text from her father. 10 minutes away. Hang tight. She showed the message to Ray, who nodded. Good, you'll be with family soon. What about you? Tiana asked. Don't you need to get going? Your sister, I called her earlier, Ray said. Explained the situation. She understands. Tiana nodded gratefully. Something about Ray's steady presence had been keeping her grounded throughout this ordeal. The thought of him leaving made the situation seem suddenly more frightening again. Across the parking lot, a new commotion was brewing. The detective was on his phone again, his free hand making emphatic gestures as he paced back and forth. Officer Chen jogged over to join him. More news, Ray observed. Minutes ticked by as they watched the officers conferring, occasionally glancing in their direction. Finally, both the detective and Officer Chen approached them. We've got an update, Officer Chen said, her expression cautiously hopeful. State police intercepted the vehicle at a roadblock. 2 men in custody and the young woman is safe. Relief flooded through Tiana. She's okay? Shaken up, but yes, the detective confirmed. And here's where it gets interesting. One of the men is definitely our guy from the rest stop. The woman they had with them? She's a college student from Westfield University. Disappeared 3 days ago. That's my school, Tiana whispered, the connection sending another chill through her. The detective nodded. We think they've been targeting college students specifically. Your description and the rest stop footage helped the state police identify him at the roadblock. If you hadn't reported this, they might have slipped through. The weight of this information settled over Tiana. Her experience, terrifying as it had been, had potentially saved another woman's life. The thought was overwhelming. There's something else, Officer Chen added. The woman they rescued said there were others. The men were taking her to a house somewhere, where more girls were being held. Ray's expression darkened. A trafficking operation. That's what it looks like, the detective confirmed. We've got officers working with the FBI now to locate the house. This could break open a case we've been working on for months. Headlights swept across the parking lot as a new vehicle pulled in. A familiar blue pickup truck. Tiana's father had arrived. Dad, she breathed, standing up as the truck parked and a man jumped out, scanning the area frantically until his eyes landed on his daughter. Tiana, he called, rushing toward her. As Tiana ran to meet him to feel the safety of her father's arms around her, she glanced back at Ray, still sitting on the bench. He gave her a small nod, a gesture that somehow conveyed everything: relief, respect, a shared understanding of what they had both been part of tonight. This wasn't over. Not for the police, not for the missing women, not even for Tiana herself. But in this moment, as her father held her tight, whispering thanks to God for her safety, Tiana felt something beyond the fear and shock that had dominated the evening. It was purpose. A certainty that what had happened to her, what she had done, mattered in ways she was only beginning to understand. The police station hummed with activity even at this late hour. Tiana sat in a small interview room, a foam cup of lukewarm tea on the table before her. Her father, Michael, sat beside her, his large hand occasionally squeezing hers for reassurance. They had been there for nearly 2 hours now, answering questions, looking at photos, and piecing together the timeline of events. Detective Garrison, a stern-faced man with kind eyes, closed the folder in front of him and leaned back in his chair. "I think that's everything for now, Ms. Jackson. You've been incredibly helpful." Tiana nodded, exhaustion settling deep in her bones. It was past midnight now, and the adrenaline that had kept her going was finally wearing off. "What happens next?" her father asked, his deep voice steady despite the worry lines etched across his forehead. "We continue building our case," Detective Garrison replied. "The 2 men in custody aren't talking yet, but the evidence is mounting. The woman they had with them, Lena, has provided valuable information about their operation." "Will Tiana need to testify?" Michael asked, his grip on his daughter's hand tightening slightly. The detective exchanged a glance with Officer Chen, who stood by the door. "It's possible, but not certain at this point. We'll keep you informed every step of the way." Tiana looked up. "What about Ray? Have you finished with him too?" "Mr. Wilson completed his statement about an hour ago," Officer Chen said. "He was very thorough. Is he still here?" Tiana asked. She hadn't had a chance to properly thank him, to say goodbye before being whisked away to the station with her father. Officer Chen nodded. "Actually, he's been waiting. Said he wanted to make sure you were okay before he left." Something warm bloomed in Tiana's chest at those words. This stranger, no, not a stranger anymore, had already done so much, and still he waited. "Can I see him?" she asked. "Of course," Detective Garrison said, standing. "We're done here for tonight. Officer Chen will take you to the waiting area, and then you folks can head home. We'll be in touch tomorrow." As they followed Officer Chen down the hallway, Tiana felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that the ordeal was over, at least for now. Fear of what might have happened if things had gone differently, and something else. A lingering sense that her life had changed in ways she couldn't yet fully understand. The waiting area was small, just a few chairs and a water cooler in the corner. Ray stood as they entered, his tall frame unfolding from a chair that seemed too small for him. He looked tired but alert, his eyes immediately finding Tiana's. "You're still here," she said, a smile touching her lips for the first time in hours. "Wanted to make sure you were okay," Ray replied simply. Tiana's father stepped forward, extending his hand. "Michael Jackson, I understand I owe you my daughter's safety." Ray shook his hand firmly. "Ray Wilson, and your daughter saved herself." "I just happened to recognize the signal." "Still," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion, "I can't thank you enough." Officer Chen excused herself, leaving the 3 of them alone in the waiting area. For a moment, no one spoke, the events of the evening hanging in the air between them. "They told me what happened after," Ray said finally, "about the other girl they found and the operation they think they've uncovered." Tiana nodded. "They showed me her picture. Lena. She goes to my university, though I don't know her personally. She disappeared 3 days ago, leaving the library. Just like the others," Ray said quietly. Michael looked between them. "Others? There have been at least 4 disappearances in the last 2 months, Tiana explained. All young women, all from my university or nearby schools. 1 was found last week and now Lena. 2 are still missing." The gravity of the situation settled over them once more. What had started as a frightening encounter at a rest stop had revealed itself to be part of something much larger and more sinister. "Detective Garrison thinks they'll find the missing women now," Tiana continued. "Lena overheard the men talking about a house near the state line. She thinks that's where they were taking her, where the others might be." Ray nodded, his expression grim but hopeful. "If they can locate it in time, they will," Michael said firmly, as though his certainty could make it true. Tiana looked at Ray, really looked at him for the first time since their ordeal began. The fluorescent lights of the police station revealed details she hadn't noticed before. The small scar above his right eyebrow, the flecks of gray at his temples, the watchful alertness in his eyes that probably never fully went away, not after what he'd seen in his military days. "What made you learn about that hand signal?" she asked suddenly. "The one I used? You said you volunteer with a group?" Ray's expression softened slightly. "After I got back from my last tour, I had a hard time adjusting to civilian life. Needed something purposeful to do, something that mattered." He shrugged. "My sister volunteers at a women's shelter. She suggested I might be able to help with their training program on recognizing signs of trafficking and domestic violence. And that's where you learned about the signal? Ray nodded. It's relatively new. Started on social media during the pandemic when domestic violence rates were spiking. The idea was to create a way for people to silently ask for help during video calls if they couldn't speak freely. Michael shook his head in wonder. A TikTok video and a volunteer program. That's what saved my daughter's life tonight. Along with her quick thinking, Ray added. Giving Tiana a respectful nod, the door to the waiting area opened, and Detective Garrison stepped in, his expression tense but excited. Just got word from the state police. They've located the house. SWAT team is preparing to move in. Tiana felt her heart rate quicken. The missing women? We think they're there, the detective confirmed. Based on surveillance and Lena's information, we believe there could be 4 or 5 young women being held at the location. 4 or 5. Michael repeated, his voice strained. More than the 2 who are still missing from recent reports? Detective Garrison nodded grimly. This operation may be bigger than we initially thought. Been going on longer, too. Ray stood straighter, his military bearing evident. When do they move in? Within the hour, the detective replied. I thought you'd want to know. This all started because of what happened at that rest stop tonight. The weight of those words settled over Tiana. If she hadn't signaled for help, if Ray hadn't recognized that signal, if they hadn't reported the incident to the police, how many more women might have disappeared? I'll update you when I have more information, Detective Garrison said. In the meantime, you folks should head home, get some rest. It's been a long night. After the detective left, Michael turned to Ray. Where are you staying tonight? Your sister's place? Ray shook his head. Was planning to find a motel somewhere. It's too late to continue to my sister's now. Nonsense, Michael said firmly. We have a guest room. After what you did for my daughter, the least we can offer is a place to stay. Ray looked surprised, then grateful. I wouldn't want to impose. You wouldn't be, Tiana said quietly. Something about the thought of Ray coming home with them, of keeping this connection for a little while longer, felt right. As though their shared experience had created a bond that wasn't meant to be broken just yet. As they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, Tiana's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a campus alert from her university, warning students about recent disappearances and urging caution when traveling alone. Too little, too late, she murmured, showing the alert to her father. Maybe, Michael said, but at least they're saying something now. Outside, the night had grown cooler, the parking lot of the police station nearly empty, except for a few patrol cars and their own vehicles. Ray walked with them to Michael's truck. I'll follow you, he said, gesturing to his own car, a weathered blue sedan parked in the corner. As her father started the truck, Tiana watched Ray walk to his car, his tall figure illuminated briefly in the glow of the streetlights. She thought about how differently this night could have ended, how close she had come to becoming another statistic, another missing person case. Instead, she was going home. And because of what had happened, because she had recognized danger and signaled for help, because Ray had noticed and responded, other women might be going home soon too. Her father glanced at her as they pulled out of the parking lot. Ray's headlights visible in the rearview mirror. You okay, baby girl? Tiana considered the question. Was she okay? Not entirely, not yet. The fear and shock were still there, humming beneath the surface. But alongside them was something else now, a sense that perhaps everything that had happened, terrible as it was, might have happened for a reason. I will be, she answered finally, watching the road ahead unfold in the truck's headlights. I think I will be. 6 months had passed since that night at the rest stop. Summer had come and gone, and autumn was painting the university campus in shades of gold and red. Tiana stood at the podium looking out at the faces before her, some familiar, some strange, all attentive. The auditorium was fuller than she had expected for a Tuesday evening event. I didn't plan to become an advocate, she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nervousness in her stomach. I was just trying to get home for spring break. A gentle ripple of understanding laughter moved through the crowd. Beside her on the small stage sat Ray, looking slightly uncomfortable in a button-up shirt rather than his usual casual attire. In the 6 months since the incident, he had become a fixture in Tiana's life, first as a protective presence, then as a mentor, and now as a partner in the awareness campaign they had built together. What happened that night led to the rescue of 7 women, Tiana continued. 2 that same night and 5 more when police raided the house near the state line. All of them had been taken from rest stops, gas stations, or parking lots along Highway 78 and nearby routes. All of them were being trafficked or were about to be. She paused, letting that sink in. In the front row, her parents watched with a mixture of pride and lingering concern. Next to them sat Officer Chen, out of uniform today, and Detective Garrison, who had become a regular presence at these events. The thing that saved me, that helped save all of us, was a simple hand gesture. Tiana demonstrated the signal, thumb tucked into palm, fingers closing over it. This signal was created during the pandemic as a way for domestic violence victims to silently ask for help during video calls. But it works anywhere, anytime someone sees it and knows what it means. Ray stood now, moving to join her at the podium. That's why awareness is so crucial, he added. The signal only works if people recognize it. If I hadn't been volunteering with that prevention program, I might have walked right past what was happening. In the months following the arrests, as the case against the trafficking ring had built, Tiana and Ray had found themselves drawn into advocacy work almost by accident. First, it was just interviews with police and prosecutors. Then a local news station had picked up the story. When Tiana's university asked her to speak at a campus safety event, she'd asked Ray to join her. From there, it had grown into something neither of them had anticipated, a full-fledged awareness campaign that had now reached thousands. Today, we want to talk about 3 things, Tiana continued, finding her rhythm now. Recognition, response, and prevention. How to recognize when someone might be in danger, how to respond safely, and how to prevent these situations in the first place. As Ray took over, explaining the warning signs to watch for, Tiana's mind drifted briefly back to that night. The fear she had felt still visited her sometimes in dreams. The silver car, the man's eyes shadowed by his cap, the sensation of being trapped. But those dreams came less frequently now, replaced by a sense of purpose that had grown stronger with each passing month. The trial was set to begin next month. All 9 members of the trafficking ring had been identified, though only 7 were in custody. The operation had been more extensive than anyone had initially realized, with connections to similar groups in 3 neighboring states. Tiana would testify, as would Ray and the women who had been rescued. The evidence was overwhelming. Lena, the young woman who had been rescued the night of Tiana's encounter, was in the audience today. She had transferred to a different university but stayed in touch with Tiana. Their shared experience had created a bond that needed no explanation. Sometimes survival was enough of a connection. Ray finished his portion of the presentation and Tiana stepped forward again. Now we're going to demonstrate some practical safety strategies, she said. But first I want to be clear about something. If you ever find yourself in danger, there is no perfect response. Whatever you do to survive is the right thing. She made eye contact with Lena as she said this, seeing the other woman's slight nod of acknowledgement. They had talked about this often, the tendency for survivors to question their own actions, to wonder if they could have done something differently. That said, there are tools that can help, Tiana continued. The hand signal is one. Another is creating a safety plan before you travel. For the next 40 minutes, Tiana and Ray walked the audience through various scenarios and responses. How to be aware of surroundings without living in fear. How to trust instincts about uncomfortable situations. When to engage and when to withdraw. Throughout it all, Tiana felt the steady presence of Ray beside her, his calm confidence helping to ground her own. When the formal presentation ended, people gathered around them with questions and comments. A young woman asked about the best apps for safety tracking. An older man wanted to know how to teach these strategies to his teenage granddaughters. A campus security officer discussed implementing new patrol patterns around student parking areas. As the crowd began to thin, Detective Garrison approached them. Good turnout, he said, nodding appreciatively. Better than last month's event. Word is spreading, Ray agreed. Speaking of which, the detective continued, I have some news. The FBI task force found connections between this case and 3 others they've been working on. They're asking if you 2 would be willing to help with a training program for law enforcement. Teaching officers what to look for, that kind of thing. Tiana and Ray exchanged glances. Their advocacy work had already expanded far beyond what either had anticipated. What had begun as a way to process their own experience had evolved into something that was making a real difference. "We'd be honored," Tiana said, Ray nodding in agreement beside her. Later, as they walked across campus toward the parking lot, the evening air crisp with autumn, Tiana found herself reflecting on the unexpected turns her life had taken. "You know," she said to Ray, "sometimes I still can't believe all of this started because of a TikTok video I barely paid attention to." Ray smiled. "And a training program I almost skipped. Small choices, big consequences," Tiana mused. They reached her car where her father waited to drive them both to dinner. The three had fallen into a comfortable routine over the past months. Tuesday night presentations followed by dinner at the Jackson home. Ray, who had moved to be closer to his sister in the same town, had become like family to them. "Dad," Tiana called as they approached, "Detective Garrison wants us to help with an FBI training program." Michael stepped forward to greet them, pride evident in his expression. "My daughter, the safety expert," he said, pulling her into a quick hug. "Who would have thought?" "Not me," Tiana admitted. "I was just trying to get home. And instead, you helped others find their way home," Ray said quietly. The simple truth of those words settled over Tiana. 7 women rescued that night, and in the days that followed, countless others potentially protected through the awareness work they'd been doing since. It didn't erase the trauma of what had happened, but it gave it meaning, purpose. As they drove away from campus, Tiana gazed out the window at the students crossing the quad, most of them absorbed in their own worlds, unaware of the dangers that might lurk in ordinary places. Before her experience, she had been just like them. Now her perspective had shifted. She saw the world differently. Its threats, yes, but also its possibilities for connection and protection. The hand signal that had saved her life was such a small thing, just a thumb tucked into a palm, fingers folded over, but small things could create ripples that extended far beyond their origin. Next week, they would present at another university. The month after that, a law enforcement conference. The work continued, evolving as they learned more, reached more people. "You're quiet," Ray observed from the back seat. Tiana turned to look at him. This former Marine who had become such an unexpected but vital part of her life story. Just thinking about how different things could have been. "If you hadn't been at that rest stop," "But I was," Ray said simply. "And you knew what to do when it mattered." Michael glanced at them in the rearview mirror. "And now hundreds of others do too because of you both." Tiana nodded, turning back to the window. The campus lights were fading behind them as they drove toward home. Ahead, the road stretched out, no longer just a path from one place to another, but a symbol of the journey that had brought her here, to this unexpected purpose. This chance to transform a moment of fear into a legacy of protection, a hand signal, a moment of recognition, a choice to act. These small things had changed everything, and they would continue to do so. One presentation, one person, one life at a time.